So we're here at RAGT22 with the absolutely amazing RaeAnne Thayne. I am so excited. This is your first time here, right?
It is my first time, and I'm loving it. It's been so great already.
You're already having fun. That's
Having a great
great.
time.
And it doesn't even really get started full force until Friday and Saturday.
And this is my first event since COVID. So
Since the whole
fall of 2020
Yeah.
or 2019, and this is the first time I've
Well,
been
we
with
usually do it
readers.
every year, but we skipped some, obviously, and then we did just a one-day thing last year that was still loads of fun. I wasn't sure how it would go over because we'd had the pandemic, right?
Right.
The spots that we allotted for a one-day thing filled up so fast, I thought, yeah, people are ready.
Ready.
They're ready to get back to it.
So ready,
So-
and I was so ready for this.
Did it affect your writing?
It really did. It was just a little more lonely than usual. You know, writing is a solitary thing anyway, as you well know. And
Yeah.
so we need our community. We need to be surrounded by the people who get what we're doing and understand, you know, sort of where we're coming from and the things that we love. And so it lost some of the savor, I would have to say.
Right,
just
yeah. It
not
wasn't
having-
quite as fun
Yeah.
trying to get it done in the middle of it. And then, of course, there were all those problems with the publishing and you know, trying to get things
Right.
set up and books on
supply
shelves.
chain
You're right.
still going on. Supply chain issues still happening. But yeah, it's
So at least we have email, so we could complain and email to other understanding authors that got what the problems were. Yeah.
But I had to think how wonderful that we still had like Zoom. We still had that ability to reach people that we, you know, nobody was really using that too much beforehand. And
I know, because I upgraded my computer and I said I don't need a camera on it because I always put a little thing over the camera so nobody would accidentally see me when I didn't mean for them to. So I got everything upgraded, nice new stuff, and I didn't have a camera on it, and then we started Zoom.
Yeah.
So now I always have to drag out Alan's laptop, my husband Alan. So prior to this, I asked a bunch of the attendees questions for you.
Okay.
If I hit a question you don't know the answer to, like people ask me questions sometimes about older books and I don't remember, or anything that you don't want to give away, feel free.
Okay.
So one of the first ones, though, is why was the series titled The Cowboys of Cold Creek when the stories took place in Pine Gulch?
Okay, so the answer to that is that originally that was only supposed to be 3 books about the brothers who lived on the Cold Creek Ranch. So it was, they were 3 brothers and they lived on Cold Creek and they were cowboys, so it made total sense. But then I sort of started expanding that universe to other people in the community, but it already had the name of the Cowboys of Cold Creek, so we just kind of kept it.
So it did have that basis for it,
had the
yeah.
basis. So, and really, when people look at that series, they say, oh, there's, you know, I think there's like 18, 19 books in that series. It's a little overwhelming, but really it's just multiple trilogies set in the same place. So it's, you know, like I think 5 different trilogies or 4 different trilogies that I've put in the same universe.
Will there be more? I mean, do you have more in
No,
your
I
head?
think I'm done with that. I did many books there, and the last probably 8 of them were Christmas books because I was only writing 1 book a year for special edition. They wanted it out at Christmas time, and so I'm like, I don't know how many more Cold Creek Christmas books I have in me because I've covered every single celebration this community could possibly have. So I need to move somewhere else for Christmas. So I don't know. I mean, I moved. I'm still doing it once in a while as a book for so Harlequin Special Edition. See, I've been around for a long time. It's no longer Silhouette. It was when I started, but Harlequin's Special Edition I'm still doing once in a while, but I don't know that it will be in Cold Creek anymore. I never say never, though, because you just don't know what you're going to decide, what your brain's going to decide to resurrect.
All of a sudden a story kicks into your head and we kind of have to get it out
Right.
of our heads by writing it.
Right, and my Christmas book is actually, I'm going back to Hope's Crossing, which I haven't written in 10 years. So
Wow.
Got a book coming out in Hope's Crossing.
So do you have to go back and reread the earlier books when you do
I
that?
did. I had to really reread like the Bible that I keep for them so that I knew who the characters were. And even then I was like, I do not remember these people whatsoever. What kids did they have? You know, I know I've mentioned it in previous or subsequent books that they had a child, but I don't remember if it was a boy or a girl. And I probably still made mistakes. I had to ask readers sometimes.
The timeline on that, when you have to progressively age everyone based on the new person, it gets tricky. And I'm not good at math.
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to go tell Alan, do the math on this for me. So, yeah.
Well, this one was logical because she was 19 in the original series, and so it's 10 years later, and you know she's a good age for one of my heroines. So, and I have
nice.
many readers who've asked me to write this particular character's story through the years, and so it's been fun.
Well, that's good. And do you feel like you have it set to where you want it to be for reader expectations?
You know, that's always hard because they have their own ideas, especially a character that went through the whole series. It's just a secondary character. I think people have their own idea of where they want them to end up. But I love the hero that I gave her, and she deserved to happy ending, so I was happy to give it to her finally.
Yeah, sometimes our ideas aren't what the reader's ideas are.
Right.
Usually, and sometimes it'll be in a direction they were never expecting, but they love it even more.
Yeah, I hope
so.
so.
You just never know.
I hope that's the case.
They said, do you try to write a little bit every day, or?
I do. You know, I try to write 6 days a week. I usually try to take a break 1 day a week just to catch my breath a little bit, but I try to write at least a couple of hours every day. Ideally, it would be much more than that, but my life is not exactly ideal all the time for writing. So I do it when I can. I think all of us are kind of in that boat. With life has sort of changed over the years, and we're not as able to have a whole long 8 hours of writing time like we used to. But
well, and so I don't know about you, but for me, I always feel like I'm juggling priorities, and if a bigger priority comes in, that gets taken care of first.
Right.
You know, ideally, you want your writing to be a priority for the day, but I know you have kids, you have a husband, you know, you're involved in your community some, so sometimes things change and you got to take care of something different.
That's right. It is exactly, you have to sort of rank things on urgency and deal with the urgent thing first. Everything's important, but sometimes certain things are more urgent than other things.
I had an author friend say to me once that she felt guilty because she didn't write as often as she should. And I said, but if you wrote more often, then you'd start feeling guilty that you didn't enjoy life as much as you should. It's day to day. You just got to juggle it as it comes in.
I can remember a conversation I had clear back in probably 1997 with other writers where I was guilty when I was writing because I wasn't spending we only had one child at the time. I wasn't spending time with her. Then I was guilty when I spent time with her because I wasn't writing. And they're like, you've got to let that go and enjoy the moment and doing what you're doing at the time, or else you're not going to find fulfillment in this career. You know, if you're always worrying about what you're not doing, then
instead of what you're doing and enjoying it,
yeah.
which is not an easy lesson for authors to learn, because like you said, it's very solitary.
It's not an easy lesson for women to learn. We're always thinking there's something else we should be working on. You know, unfortunately, there's all these expectations on us. We want to be everything to everyone, and you just can't be.
Now, see, for me, it's the opposite. Alan wants to be everything for everyone and anything that I might need. It drives me nuts. I get up in the morning, and I'm just trying to inhale my first cup of coffee, and I hear him start the vacuum. And I'm like, you need to sit your butt down and let me enjoy so I don't have to feel guilty. What is your favorite type of story to read when you get a chance to read for pure pleasure? Like, do you read in the genre that you write? Do you go outside that? Or
So I read mostly historicals. That's my happy place. That's always been my happy place. And I think it's because it's not my genre. When I'm reading in my genre, I'm always worried about, I don't want to take this idea. I don't want to, I don't want to write like this author does. You know, I want to have my own voice. And it's writing historicals, I know I could never write a historical, so reading them is just a total escape, whereas reading what I write is not necessarily the same.
You sound so much like me. People will say, with as much as you love historicals, why don't you write one? I said, I don't have the talent to write historical.
I could never do
That's
that.
a whole separate set of skills.
And then I think I would lose that escape if I were writing them. It would be different. I would read them differently, through different eyes.
Now, along the same vein, do you read print books or digital mostly?
Digital. My eyes have gotten so bad over typing all the time and working on a computer all the time that I love my Kindle because I can blow up the...
That's what everybody says, you make the font bigger.
Yeah, and I can have it as bright as I need it for whatever the lighting conditions are, or turn it down if I don't want that light. So that's...
See, for me, it always feels like if it's still digital, then I'm still working.
Oh,
it's
really?
stupid. I don't know why. So I want to be able to pick up a book and change everything, and historical, print book, away from the PC.
Right.
So.
Sorry.
It says, how do you come up with themes for a series of books like Cowboys of Cold Creek?
So again, it was a piece at a time. So I'd written the original series of 3 brothers. That was where the idea started, and so I knew all 3 of those stories I was going to tell. And then I had, in that particular case, this has never happened to me before, but I had a dream about a character.
Oh, wow.
I had a dream, and a fully formed dream about. It was the book, the Cowboys Christmas Miracle. I knew the whole story. I knew everything, and that's never happened before or since.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
Totally.
And the other funny thing about that was that I was in New Jersey for a conference, and I had lunch with my editor in New York, and I said, hey, I had this idea for a story. And she's like, okay, we'll buy it. And I'd never had that happen before, where I could just, say, I've got this idea, and then sell it, just on a lunch conversation. And so that spun that idea off. And then I thought of a few more, and I did another miniseries set there, and then from that I had another idea. So that's basically how that happens. It's usually the characters that speak to me, and the characters that sort of, I don't know, sub-characters tell me, okay, it's my turn now. And then from that, I usually come up with maybe a trilogy idea.
So it seems like some secondary characters just jump up more than
do.
others,
I'm
and
sure
they say,
you find that too, right? You have no choice once
they won't shush and leave you alone, and you got to write their book.
Yeah, you've got to. It's
but sometimes too, readers will write me, and they make me start thinking about a character that I hadn't been thinking. Does that happen to you as well?
All the time, and I think I would never have imagined writing that character, but you're right, they need a story.
Yeah, somehow that hit a note with the readers that when we were writing them, we didn't really think about.
Right.
When did you first publish?
My first book came out in '96.
Yes, so the same time as me. Yeah.
Yeah, so I sold to Bantam Love Swept back in the day, and I did 5 books for them, and then at the time I was thinking I'd like to write for 2 publishers. I really wanted, I could write more books than they could take at the time, and so I got an agent and we started pitching around. I had an idea for romantic suspense, and she pitched it at the time Silhouette Intimate Moments. And so right around the time they started phasing out the Love Swept line, I had already sold 2 Intimate Moments. So I felt like that was meant to be because, they were already discontinuing the Love Swept line.
I loved Love Swept.
I did too.
That was like my favorite go-to. Yeah. Sorry, Harlequin, because I ended up writing for them. But I loved Love Swept. I just thought they had a very unique feel to them. Yeah.
They really looked for different voices, maybe that people that weren't writing the same thing, and then I think they were very author-centric. They really wanted to bring out the author and focus on individual authors.
Yeah, so like Harlequin and Silhouette at the time, they liked individual voices, but they really wanted you to fit in the category line that they were doing, and it always felt like Love Swept was just, every one of them was so different.
Yeah, seriously, you could have sweet books with really, really sexy books. You could have romantic suspense if you wanted to write that. They never really said, no, you can't write that.
The parameters weren't there like there were for some of those other lines.
Right.
I want to make sure I get this question in. What is your favorite town? Pine Gulch, Hope's Crossing, Haven Point, or Cape Sanctuary? And I bet I know your answer, so go ahead.
Well, usually it's whatever book I'm writing in at the time.
Right, yeah.
Whatever community I live in, I love to write. But they all have a really special place in my heart. I would have stayed in Hope's Crossing for a long time. I loved Hope's Crossing. That was my first single title series, and I felt connected to all the people in that community. And I'd created just this place I loved and wanted to write about. But, I kind of felt I'd done 7 books in that series. I was struggling to think of who else could I write in this series at the time. And so I just thought, well, I'm going to start over and we'll build our own place in the Haven Point. So I started again. And it just seems like every time I start a new town, I think, well, I'll never love that as much as I loved this previous community, And then I always just fall in love with the community. And they're all fictional. Obviously, they don't exist, except in my head. But, it's just, it feels real to me when I'm in that
Do you
place.
get bored with them after you've done a few there or not?
I don't know that I get bored with them. The real reason people ask me, why did you end this? Why don't you stay there? Why do you start a new one? It's just mainly there's 2 reasons. One is for the readers, because I feel like readers don't want to jump into a Cold Creek series as 18, 19 books, however many I ended up getting.
But they each stand alone, right?
Yeah, they each. Well, in that particular book, there were like 3 connected books, and then there was another set of 3 connected books, as I've said. And in Haven Point, Hope's Crossing was a little more connected than Haven Point was. Haven Point, they are connected, but they are pretty much standalone. Cape Sanctuary, my Summer at the Cape, that's my most recent book, that's totally standalone. They're only set in the same place. The characters don't interact with each other. They don't meet up for lunch or anything like that. It's just they're new characters with every book.
But then when they don't meet up for lunch, then a reader's going to write and say, why don't they meet up for lunch?
They haven't yet.
Oh,
Nobody's
okay.
ever
Well,
said,
they will.
Why don't you have these people come in? And sometimes it's really tempting because I love setting those little Easter eggs, for my readers. And I'm writing a book right now in this series that there's a whole kind of an art subplot, which was what the first book in that series had, kind of an art subplot. And I'm thinking, well, it's logical for me to bring in these other people that were also art. I mean, it's only a tiny, small part of the plot, but I keep thinking I should bring them in, but my whole, concept for this is I don't want readers to pick up one and think, oh, I should have read this other book first, or something like that. I want them to feel like they could read them in any particular order that they want.
So, someone else wants to know why you moved, and I don't think you have completely, from romance to women's fiction.
Oh no, I still consider my books romance.
Right.
They're just bigger romance, you know, and I wouldn't say bigger, it's just more characters have stories, you know, whereas typically when in a regular romance you're writing a linear story about two people and their story and how they came together. You know, yes, you can bring in a lot of other secondary characters, but the core story is those two people. But a book like Summer at the Cape, I have basically 3 subplots in it. I have a main character and their story, and then I had her sister and her story, which is a secondary plot, and then the relationship between the family is it's kind of a third plot. And the main reason is because I love being able to tell not just the romance story, but these relationships between sisters and between mothers and daughters and between friends, you know, because it's not all about romance as much as we love to read romance. Our lives are full, and we have struggles that aren't about our relationships, you know. And women, I think, you know, we all relate to those things when we're able to read them, because some of us are going through similar situations. And so it's great to have the escape of a romance. And I will never have a book that doesn't have romance in it. Will never have a book that doesn't have a happy ending, because that's what I need. I think that's what the world needs, you know. I like to write books that make people happy, and I'm not going to write a book that's a downer book, but I really do like being able to explore some of the harder things about life and show that, yes, we all face difficult things, but we can still have a happy life. We can still have a happy ending, even if we go through grief and sadness and sorrow and disappointments along the way. We can all have joy. That's what life is about.
That's what I love about romance. I was just reading a Vivian LeRae book, because like you, I love historical. And I told her, I said, I am loving this so much, but thank God I know this is a romance and this is going to end happy, because I was dying for the guy, you know. I was like, oh, I feel so bad for him. So I was thrilled. That's part of it for me. I don't want to start something that ends like that movie Seven, where there's a head in a box and people are dead at the end. I want to know that it's good that way, you know. So to wrap it up, tell us what your last book out was and what the next book out will be.
So the last book is Summer at the Cape. That's part of my Cape Sanctuary series. It's about 2 sisters that have lost a third sister. So there is a little bit of sadness in there. Well, quite a lot of sadness in there. Yeah. But they both have to come back to this little town in Cape Sanctuary and sort of help fulfill their sister's dream of starting this campground, and it's threatened by neighbors and things like that. So I had a lot of fun writing that. My next book is, my next front list book, my next new release is called All Is Bright, and that's the one where I go back to Hope's Crossing, and it's the story of Sage, who was a daughter of one of the other characters in Hope's Crossing.
And that'll be out?
And that'll be out at the end of September.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for being here.
It
was a pleasure. I appreciate it.
So great.
And I'm sure we'll visit more throughout the event.
Of course.
All right.
Great to see you.